Earth as we speak. These cars are being lifted in the air due to this magnetic field. And you and everything you know will be lifted in a moment. You hear a lot of people talking about the rapture, and you're trying to understand what are they talking about. Raptured, lifted, you know. It's a magnetic pulse from a planet that is coming, and I'm going to explain a little bit to you about this planet that is coming. The government knows all about this planet. This planet been here since the days of Sodom and Gomorrah and the days of Noah, and each civilization was destroyed by this planet. This planet, it caused severe weather patterns, unprecedented. And when this planet comes close to our planet, it changes our planet to evil, because when God designed the universe, He designed this evil planet to come to the evil. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, he will also reap. If man becomes evil on this planet and makes this planet an evil planet, he shall also reap an evil planet. An evil planet is on its way. Psalm 7:16. The trouble they cause recoils on them. It comes down on you. Their violence comes down on their own heads. So this planet affects the minds. It is killing animals. Animals are dying off. The fish is dying off. It is disrupting the whole planet.
Another small life lost on the vast Kazakh grasslands. Officials estimate that in the last 2 weeks as many as 12,000 Saiga antelope have died.
No one can understand what's happened because we see dead animals concentrated in a certain area.
The government is baffled.
This phenomena took place not only in the area where mass death of Saiga antelope took place, it also happened in another district some time ago where strange white fog was seen.
And as their numbers plummet once again, this graceful sight is becoming ever rarer.
These are the signs of God. And as this planet moves closer, it is throwing off red iron oxide, evil red iron oxide, which is affecting the minds of the animals, the humans, and the whole entire planet with its strong evil magnetic field. As the magnetic field affects the earth and the minds of the people, they become more evil, and violence is about to break out to a scale unprecedented, never seen before in the history of mankind. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places, and all these are the beginnings of sorrow.
Coming at you live from Gilbert, Arizona, Southeast Phoenix. This is unedited footage of the sunset. Are you serious?
Now, as this planet approaches our planet, it lets off iron oxide. It has a meteor tail 3 million miles long. And this meteor tail, every time this planet turns and swerves and goes around something, it spreads out like wings. And those wings will be a sign of the return of Christ. It will be a sign. And I just said it, what it's going to be, a sign. Those wings are going to spread out, and it's going to have a long tail, and it's going to look like Jesus Christ on the cross. This prophecy stated that if man did not turn from evil and place himself at the feet of God, the planet would self-destruct, and the events described in the book of Revelations would indeed come to pass. This is your final warning. If you did not hear anything that anyone has been telling you, at least hear this. Your doom is coming. The planet will be rising. The two magnetic fields is coming into each other, and they will pull on this earth in such a way that you have never seen ever in life. If you are not straight with God, you better get yourself straight. The end of this world is right here at hand, and it's going to be like in the days of Noah. It's going to be like in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, you have an ounce of time, days. So I'll do a quick recap. The iron oxide from this evil planet is causing an effect on the minds of the people, and it's, as the planet gets closer, it's going to get worse and worse. The police, you think they're bad now, they're going to be 1,000% worse. It's going to wreak havoc. The World War III is going to start. It's going to affect the minds, this magnetic pulse, this field, you know, and it's going to affect animals and everything like never before. So you should be ready to go. And I'm not talking about world ready. I'm not talking about prepper ready. I'm talking about God ready. Because this planet is going to be destroyed. It's done. And you can be deceived by the beast at this time. The elections is going to go horrible. Everything is going to go bad. This is Venezuela right here. Everything is about to go bad. You know, and basically people are getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And just think about people who are already on mental medications. You know, it is time to get yourself out of the city. It is time to flee to the mountains. It is time to set your teepee out in the wilderness. If you ain't understanding what I'm saying, then you will not. Turn off the video. Go to hell. If you do understand what I'm saying, please get yourself and your house in order. Get away from the city. This is Raptor News. Peace.
Dependent military families, the husbands and wives of the men and women in the military, has begun conducting briefings for dependents. These would be the dependents that are stationed on near the East Coast, the Atlantic Ocean, near the West Coast, the Pacific Ocean, and near the Gulf Coast. At these briefings, they're being told the following: that there's this planetary-sized object called NiBIRU that's coming into our solar system. It's going to be causing very severe problems, much more so than it already is, very soon. And that they're being put on standby to bug out. They're being told that there'll be little notice, possibly 2 weeks or so, before they're given the notice to bug out. Oh, they're also, by the way, they're being shown a map advance. 4 to 6 weeks is probably pretty likely. Probably not more than 3 or 4 months. So that's our belief. I hope we're wrong. I hope that this turns out to be incorrect information. If it is, well, that's great. If it's not, if it turns out to be correct, then you've got your heads up. So I asked the question this morning to all of you out there, to the several thousand of you listening to me on the morning of July 11th, 2012. What would you do if you had 6 years to prepare? What would you do if you had 6 months to prepare? What would you do if you had 6 weeks to prepare? Mike, it was 2 weeks ago today that I announced the information I received from 2 confidential sources. One was a confidential source who is a dependent of a Department of Defense employee, part of continuity of government contingency planning, by the way. Not all DOD and not all government employees are part of COG, continuity of government contingency planning. Anyway, at this briefing, which they had to sign a non-disclosure agreement before the briefing began, they were told that they were being put on standby for evacuation, that they may get as much as 2 weeks' notice, they may not. And they started telling these dependents about NiBIRU, Planet X, and how this planetary-sized object was going to cause massive flooding on all coastal areas. The map they were shown is very similar to the map of my DVD. I need to get a copy of that to you, by the way, Mike, if I haven't. And that was pretty much it for that source. The second source is in the Department of Homeland Security, and that source basically confirmed what the first source said without going any further on that. And then the following day, or the same day, I should say, you came up with your own sources, Mike, and why don't you tell us about those?
Well, the source that first told me about this, and I've been doing some digging since then, but the source that first told me about this is a director-level individual for a foreign intelligence agency that I have occasion to speak with now and then. And what I was told, and I was told this probably maybe 60 or 90 days ago, and I didn't put a lot of credence in it at the time, but as I've researched, I have to put more and more credence in it. And as a qualifier, I have to say this up front, that, you know, perhaps this is being floated as disinformation to discredit people and to discredit. So I have to give a caveat there. I don't think it is, but it could be just that type of effort. But I was told that to be very prepared on the dates of August 17th and the dates of September 26th, that a planet-sized object would be passing passing very, very near the Earth. And I was told that the closest distance would be maybe 5 to 10 Earth diameters. It would come that close, and that we should be be prepared for massive earthquakes, and as a result of those earthquakes, tsunami-level flooding in coastal areas. Now, since that time, I've done some more digging, and I spoke with intelligence sources within the U.S. who not only confirmed that, but added some more fuel to the fire. And one of the things is that this object is coming in at an extremely high rate of speed. And what the other concern is, besides just the near passage, is that as this thing passes through the asteroid belt, it's going to disturb the stable orbits of many asteroids that are out there that are orbiting, and be like a cue ball on a billiard table and send these things going helter-skelter in every direction, so that no one knows where they're going to end up and what their ultimate destinations are going to be, and that we may be living with after effects of this for a number of years into the future. Absolutely. And then you had a second source, I understand, as well. Well, the second source was the one within the U.S. government. There was another, my primary source was from a foreign intelligence agency. Right. Well, the distance that you described, 10 times the Earth is about 24,000 miles in diameter. So 10 times that would only be 250,000 miles. That's about the distance of the moon, by the way. Yeah, that's close. And I've been told that the size of this object could be as big as the moon. Could be. It is being tracked currently, and the primary tracking station is that large dish in Puerto Rico, I believe it is. So I'm trying to learn more and as much as I can, as quickly as I can, because this will affect a lot of people. Now, I also have to tell you, I have been told point blank information that I can't share, because I was told if I go on the air with this, that my truck's going to blow up with me in it. And okay. And mostly what that has to do with the high rate of speed it's traveling at, and how it achieved that high rate of speed. The term slingshot comes to mind. Right. So, well, when this thing comes into our solar system, Mike, it comes up. It's coming from the south, by the way,
And as it gets deeper into our solar system, approaching our sun, it picks up speed. Does a loop-to-loop around the sun, excuse me, where it slows down and then starts picking up speed as it goes back out. Now, the size you're describing is not the size I've been hearing forever for the 10th planet. This sounds like something far smaller. Our moon is a fairly small rock compared to the size of Planet X or NiBIRU. So I'm a bit confused on that. I have been told also that NiBIRU, or the 10th planet, has a debris field about 250,000 miles wide, which would put us well within the debris field if it's coming that close.
Well, John, I have to be honest here. I don't know what I don't know, and I'm having a hard time discerning what is real information from what is disinformation.
Right, right.
Because that's one of the things that the powers that be will do, is they will give you bits of information, but they'll also give you bits of disinformation.
Right.
And so it's up to us to use our own discernment to try to determine, hey, what's real and what's bunk. And I'm struggling with this. I have to be very honest.
Well, and I've described this live on the air. I know you typically don't listen to my show because you're trying to get ready for your own mic, but typically what I do with this is, first of all, I describe the quandary that I find myself in, and I think you find yourself in also. We come across information like this from reliable sources that don't know each other. If it's true and we don't report it, then we could be directly responsible for a lot of lives being lost. If it's not true and we report it, well, then we get some egg on our face and life goes on. What I'm doing, Mike, is encouraging people to look at these dates as a opportunity for a training opportunity for us to evaluate our prudent preparedness, develop a plan A, a plan B, maybe even a plan C, to be able to evacuate if we live on a coastal area and be able to have a safe haven to go to. The dates of August 17th and September 26th may or may not be the accurate dates on one hand. On the other, the scientists I work with, and I work with a number of scientists, they're all in agreement that, yes, this thing's coming. And when it does come, it's going to cause massive flooding in all coastal areas. As you probably know, Mike, I've debriefed about 24 Navy veterans who were at the classified briefings, telling them that during their lifetimes this coastal flooding would occur. So I agree with you. It's a quandary. It's something that we need to encourage people to do their own research, to achieve their own level of discernment, and make decisions based on the knowledge that they gain.
Well, John, if worse comes to worse, it may be a good time to take the family on a camping trip and just be away from any large urban areas at all, because if something of this magnitude occurs, there's going to be mass panic. And when that happens, your freeways are going to be like parking lots, and you're not going to be able to get away. You're going to be stuck where you are. Temperatures are going to flare. People are going to become desperate. And it might not be a bad time to take advantage of a national park somewhere. Take the family out camping. Be prepared. Take as much stuff as you can. That's useful, utilitarian to you, and just be somewhere else. If you've got yourself a cabin or a vacation home, or you own rural property someplace, then better yet, you might, like I said, you may just want to be out of the cities.
Well,
and
you're right.
Turn it into an enjoyable occasion, like you said, a training exercise, if you will, so that you at least minimize the risk and you don't get yourself caught up in a massive urban situation, where you're sitting on a freeway and you can't move because it's bumper to bumper, and the cars around you are running out of gas because they've been sitting there for 10 hours idling.
Right. Well, I've talked occasionally, I did recently, about the aerial photograph of Houston, Texas, when people were trying to evacuate when that hurricane was headed that way. I counted the lanes up that weren't moving all in one direction. I think it was 12 or 14 lanes, interstate highway and outer roads. It was amazing, an amazing, very scary photograph. Mike, we got a caller here. James from Fort Worth. Good morning, James.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Good.
I was wondering, is there anything to be looking for through other organizations, maybe the Navy around their naval bases in Norfolk and so other places, like just a sign that they're like moving everything out, you know, getting it away from the shores? I was wondering if there's anything along those lines that maybe we could look for to give us a little bit of a heads up.
James, the Office of Naval Intelligence, ONI, have been evacuating their people from coastal areas for a while. The CIA and National Security Agency began in 2005 to evacuate their people to Denver. So there's not much you're going to see, because all the people who are part of continuity of government, the majority of them anyway, have already left the coastal areas.
Yeah, well, I've got a sister over there, and she's in North Carolina, and so I was just wanting to, because I've been watching.
Is she east or west? Is your sister east or west of the Blue Ridge Parkway?
She's east, and
well, the U.S. Navy, James, the U.S. Navy, not John Moore, the U.S. Navy says the East Coast will take damage up to the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is 100 miles from the ocean.
Yeah. She's literally right on the beach. She's got beachfront.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I wanted to get some information to her, because this subject piqued my interest years ago, and I've been really keeping up with it. And thanks to you, I've learned a whole lot. So
okay.
Thanks to both you and Mike.
Okay, James. Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Mike, we got another caller here. Dennis in Michigan. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, John and Mike. I notice I have a comment and another comment after that. I noticed that the dates between August 17th and September 26th is exactly 40 days and 40 nights. 40 nights. 40 nights. 40 nights.
Okay, but let's get down to the nuts and bolts. The stock market is crashing.
Mm-hmm.
You need to invest in gold and silver if you want to stay alive.
The stock market was rotten to its core.
Absolutely. But are you telling people to leave, to go to South America?
No,
what's your advice?
I'm telling people that you're in for some difficult times. And I say this in my presentations. I jokingly look at them and say, you're all doomed. There's not a one of you that's going to be around 100 years from now. You're doomed. So to hell with it. Enjoy the ride. No, I tell people who are interested in listening for whatever it is I have to say, that you're in for some difficult times. It's going to happen. There is no way to avoid it. We cannot go on as we were, because some of our systems were rotten to the core, and our banking system, the insurance programs, all of that, stock market, Wall Street, those guys were absolutely rotten.
The housing industry?
The housing industry. That was bound to fail. You talk about a bubble? It was bound to fail. It had to fail. Well, I'm glad it failed. Hope to hell that they learned something from it. No.
Okay, but are we talking about martial law in the United States? I mean, what are we talking here?
You're talking about a time when you may have martial law. It's only one step away. You know that the authority has been given to the president to declare it.
Right.
Congress gave that authority to the president years ago. I've even lost track of how long it's been. But anyhow, all the president has to do, whoever he may be, and that doesn't matter much anymore either, because one nitwit is very much like the other. You have a national emergency, and it's declared.
Right.
Boom. Martial law. You declare a national emergency, which has not been declared yet,
Right.
but we're right on the edge of it,
Right.
and you're going to have martial law.
Okay,
and
but we don't have an election, right?
Well, you're thinking about an October surprise.
I have no idea. I'm asking you.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure it'll happen in October. I suspect it may occur within the next year. But I don't know. I haven't had any dreams. My dreams have been pretty fascinating recently, but none of them have been terribly troubling. And I know this is all happening. It's going to take place. It's inevitable. It's been orchestrated. The Illuminati do exist. They are in power. They've been in power for years. They've been demonstrating that power ever since 1913, when they created the hell is it, this banking system? The
Federal Reserve.
Federal Reserve, yeah, which is a private corporation. We lost most of it in 47. I don't know whether you were aware of that, but that was a big year. National security became everything. It became the member of the triad. 47, we declared, we made the National Security Agency. We formed a pact with the Brits, the Australians, the Canadians, and New Zealanders. The UKUSA Pact, which most people don't even know exists. The UKUSA crowd, all of us, Britain, US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, are all like this. Whoever's in the White House and who's ever at Buckingham Palace, it don't matter.
All right.
The power behind the scenes has been running this damn thing since 1947. And Ike saw it, scared the hell out of him. He met the Anunnaki, that scared the hell out of him. So they're pulling our strings now like they always have.
Okay. So what's your solution? What would you tell people? I mean, in facing the future, in trying to reinvent the future, certainly Marsha's working with people to become enlightened, to
She's doing
apply.
a tremendous amount of work to help people make this transition. Terry, we're not just going through a transition, we're going through a transcendent transformation, literally. A transcendent transformation. We're going to come out of this thing when it's all over with, totally different species. We're not going to be the same people we were in the past. And that's good. And it's going to hurt, and it's going to be painful. And I tell people, and I've said this repeatedly, don't get too uptight about it. You've been through hell before, you're going through a bit of it again. But once it's over, once you made that transition, we're going to have, hopefully, a new world, a new future, a new beginning. And I think that's the end of the great year that we're going through. We're going through the end of a 26,000-year cycle. And I tell you, 2012 don't matter. First of all, Christ was born 7 years before. And this is a fact. And if you don't believe me, get Sir Lawrence Gardner, who's probably one of the best historians we've got working today. Lawrence Gardner's got the facts. Jesus was born in 7 BC on the 1st of March. Now, if you want to count from his birth, like we supposedly have been doing, add 7 years to 2008. You end up with 2015. That's pretty close to what 20...
so you're saying we're actually in the year 2015 now?
No, we're in the year 2015 right now.
Right. So
Yes.
that means that NiBIRU, when you say it's coming in 2020, is actually due in about 5 years.
Probably.
So we're looking at 2013 by our calendar.
Well, no later than 2017. I'll throw 2017 out.
Okay.
And you can take that to the bank. 2017. Now,
Okay.
that'll give or take a year or two, because the celestial mechanics, they haven't really worked it all out yet. We've got computers you wouldn't believe, but they're still trying to feed in some of the data.
So is one of the remote viewers, you're in touch with Ingo Swann?
I haven't been in touch with Ingo for some time, but Carrie, I've been doing some remote viewing.
Right.
I've even had a couple of out-of-body experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of meditating. When you step into that world, there is no time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can talk to anybody, everywhere, all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And now, that sounds silly to anyone who doesn't understand what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
When you step into that realm of timelessness, and you remote view, and you step out of your body, and you go into altered states, and you meditate, you're in a timeless, infinite reality that people communicate. You'd be shocked and amazed at the wealth of information that's out there just to tap into. The old ones used to talk about the Akashic record.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. It's real. And it isn't just about the past, because, Carrie, there is no past. Nor is there a future. There's only an eternal now. And a physicist sitting here in this room would say balderdash, because they wouldn't grasp for a minute what I'm trying to talk about. But old Ingo would.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been some of those places myself that you're talking about.
I knew it, you see.
And so I have to say you're absolutely right. And it's incredible pleasure for us to hear this from yourself. And I would like to, at this time, just open the floor and say, is there anything that we haven't covered here that you would like to talk about? And then, of course, we would also like to invite Bill to ask you some questions.
We've danced around on a whole bunch of things for the last hour. I enjoy it. I enjoy chatting with you two guys. You're pleasant people. Mm-hmm. As I say, I'm an old codger, and you plug me in and turn me loose. There's no telling where I may end up. I've been around 79 years this trip. I've made a dozen or two previous trips, which amazingly I remember quite a bit about. When you start going into that timeless realm, you step into that infinite, which we're all part of. Memories of other lives come flooding into you sometimes. Mm-hmm. Oh God, the things I've seen, the things I've done, the places I've been. This life are kind of shocking. The things I've done, the places I've been, and the lives I've lived before are beyond belief. I'm not boasting. This is not a boast. Mm-hmm. But I'm an old soul. I've been around on this planet a long time. And I amazingly remember it. Some of the memories I would rather not remember, because they're painful. Mm-hmm. Hell, I have memories of Sumer. I knew the Anunnaki back then. Worked with them. I was one of their products. I know them now. And I don't have any fear. And in bringing this to a close, I would like to say to whoever is watching, get rid of the fear. You have nothing to fear. You are an immortal, timeless being who has an infinite future. in a glorious universe that's so filled with beauty and life that we on this little tiny planet couldn't begin to grasp. But I say to people, don't be afraid, for God's sake. Gather around you those you love. Spread that love around. And go into tomorrow with courage. Because you've been through a hell of a lot worse before. So be hopeful, love one another, and have courage. And that's really all I have to say.
Well, thank you, Bob Dean. It's really an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you, Carrie Cassidy. I enjoyed every minute of it. I'm 79 years old. What do you mean, hold that thought?
On May 8th, a magnitude 6.4 earthquake, followed by a magnitude 5.2, hit near Tanaga volcano in the Aleutian Island chain of Alaska. Unrest continues in this region with more than 33 earthquakes, 9 of which have registered between 4.5 and 5.0. The volcano has not erupted since 1929. A short distance away near Adak Island, a swarm of earthquakes were felt, registering between 5.4 and 5.7. So something is happening in this remote volcanic area of the Aleutian Islands. We are nearly 2 months into the spring season, but you might have a hard time convincing the residents of San Diego County. A system reminiscent of a winter storm brought heavy snow to the mountains and valleys, breaking numerous weather records across the region. Is Antarctica melting more than previously thought? Apparently so, as scientists have discovered that water is gushing across the continent more than was ever realized. The researchers have found significant drainage of meltwater flowing across the continent's ice sheets during summer in Antarctica. Until now, these streams of water were mainly associated only with Antarctica's far north regions. Seen from an aircraft, a 400-foot wide waterfall drains off of the Nansen ice shelf into the ocean. The discovery of widespread streams across the continent is ominous news, indicating Antarctica's ice may be much more vulnerable to melting than scientists predicted. Free-flowing water, which absorbs solar energy more than ice, puts nearby ice at greater risk of melting. There is increasing consensus that the power grids of the world are breaking down, due in large part to a weakening magnetosphere and plasma electrification. The government explanation for the destabilized grids and satellite disruptions is directed towards hackers and planned exercises, thus keeping the media from identifying the actual cause, which falls squarely on abnormal solar activity leading to a collapsing magnetosphere and a weakened magnetic field. During a recent geomagnetic storm, a never-before-witnessed auroral display was photographed. This was a plasma filament. When mentioning plasma filament, it goes straight to the legends of dragons in the sky and gods in the heavens. If you cross 2 of these streams, then incredibly a dragon would appear, as shown in this amazing charged sky. The real reason for increasing power outages is the breakdown of our protective shield, and from this point forward it will intensify as we witness more power outages as the magnetic shield continues to collapse. Earlier in this video I mentioned how social, economical, and political systems can play a major role in the changes that happen to our planet. Whether for the betterment of civilization or for self-serving purposes, these developments can have a profound effect on the future of our planet. A perfect example of what I am referring to involves the government's irresponsible intention of drilling in our national parks. At this moment, there are 42 parks at risk. It is no secret that oil and gas companies are looking for new places to drill. But if the regulations that protect these parks from exploitation is overturned by those in Washington, then some of America's most pristine and ecologically sensitive areas will be at risk of oil spills, ground contamination, and explosions. This is a map of the 30 national parks where drilling could happen next. Any new drilling for oil and gas involves the disruption of habitats and the polluting of what little of America's untouched wilderness is left. This is but one example of how our interference with nature is contributing to the destabilization of the earth, the depletion of life's resources, and the eventual collapse of human civilization. There is something that is raising alarm bells with the world's scientists, and that has to do with the massive cracks that are developing among the Earth's ice caps and glaciers. I have spoken extensively on this disturbing story, but there is now a new and gigantic unusual crack in one of the biggest glaciers located in Greenland, which could contribute to a dramatic break in the near future. Satellite images of the Petermann Glacier show an unexpected crack in its floating ice shelf. The Petermann Glacier is one of the most important outlets by which the Greenland ice sheet extends and flows into the sea. These changes are terrifying, as Petermann Glacier holds back about a foot of potential sea level rise from the Greenland ice sheet. According to researchers, the ice shelf is slowly but surely falling apart. It has been stable for over 100 years, then started to break up, especially in the years from 2010 to 2012, and much faster between 2014 and 2015. Here is a time-lapse video of the changes taking place on the Petermann Glacier between 1984 and 2016. Researchers have stated that it is unusual to see cracks forming from the center. They usually start from the sides. This could indicate that the ice shelf has gotten too thin in the middle, thus placing greater stress on the ice shelf. It is very possible that the summer of 2017 could result in dramatic changes happening at the Petermann Glacier. Since the start of this year, the United States has been witness to one severe weather outbreak after another. There have been nearly 5,400 reports of extreme weather events across the nation since April the 8th. Now, that's not taking into account additional events that have been reported since that time. This is more than double the average of nearly 2,300 for the same period of time during the past decade. The animation shown here indicates how the occurrences of wind damage, large hail, and tornadoes have piled up month by month so far this year. Weather disasters cost more than $5 billion so far in 2017, which establishes a record. The bulk of the damage in terms of cost was due to the outbreak of severe storms. This year has also been unusual in how far north severe weather, including tornadoes, has occurred for so early in the year. For instance, Massachusetts was hit by 2 EF1 tornadoes on February 25th. This is the first occurrence of tornadoes for the month of February in the historical records of that state. In Minnesota, they experienced a similar rare early season event when severe thunderstorms spawned 3 EF1 tornadoes on March 6th. Those were the earliest known twisters for a calendar year in the state by nearly 2 weeks. If you thought that our climate, the atmosphere, and the changes taking place both on the surface of the Earth and below the surface couldn't get any worse, then maybe you should pay close attention to this report. A project initiated by 2 Harvard scientists and funded in part by Microsoft founder Bill Gates and the Hewlett and Alfred P. Sloan Foundations, and through government grants, are sending aerosol injections into the Earth's stratosphere in the world's biggest chemtrail experiment to date. The purpose of the project is to solve the problem of a warming planet by simulating the atmospheric cooling effects of a volcanic eruption in a desperate attempt to halt climate change. The basic idea is that spraying certain types of particles into the stratosphere could help reflect more heat back into space. But what is less certain is how this geoengineering technique could control worldwide temperatures and what the environmental side effects may be. Reducing incoming solar radiation affects both the weather and the hydrological cycle. It promotes drought and it destabilizes the environment. Natural alterations to the Earth's radiation balance can be devastating, even if for a short while. A 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption lowered global temperatures by ½ a degree, while the Mount Tambora eruption in 1815 triggered Europe's year without a summer, bringing crop failure, famine, and disease to the world. These are but a few of the many events that are happening across our planet in the past few weeks. Is it any wonder that so many of us are on pins and needles when we see what is taking place around us? There is a delicate balance between nature and man, but that balance weighs heavily on forces of play here on Earth, within our solar system, and with the Sun. For every action that occurs, there will be a reaction. We are witnessing a series of disturbing events, the consequences of which will severely affect every living thing on the planet. It has been said that Planet X is the harbinger of doom, a ball of redemption that has been cast out from the vast darkness of the universe, where its presence in the heavens will be a final warning sign to humanity. Something quite serious is happening to our planet. We are feeling the effects of a powerful force. The changes are taking place here on Earth and in the sky, regardless of what we believe to be true. No one knows the time. It is not for us to know, only for us to prepare as best we know how, and through whatever means possible. So here is what I am doing, and I hope that you will do the same. make the most of each day. This is something you should do regardless of your circumstances. Help those who need it the most. There are many searching for comfort and peace of mind in these troubled times. And show some kindness and generosity to others, since all of us need some sort of reassurance that things will be all right, even in moments of despair. I realize the clock is ticking. Time is moving quickly, and there is so much I would like to tell you and present to you. But I'm hopeful that you benefit from these videos in some small way. I know that your comments of support are very much appreciated by myself and those who have assisted in these presentations. So stay safe, keep an open mind, remain vigilant to your surroundings, and keep looking. Some time ago that world leaders were preparing for something catastrophic when it was discovered that they were preparing top-secret bunkers for the political and wealthy elite. The disaster that governments are and have been preparing for is one that will have dire consequences for civilization. So let's examine the facts that are known at this time and see if we can connect the dots. Let's begin with a video clip from 2015, which may explain why trillions of taxpayers' money has mysteriously disappeared. This shelter, located in Europe, is just one of many shelters that have been built for the world's elite. So if you're afraid of the end of the world and have a few millions of dollars to spend, you're welcome to secure a place at the Europa 1 shelter. If not, at least now you know such a place exists. Something strange is happening right here in the United States. There appears to be room for 10,000 of the world's elite to step into an underground world beneath Denver. Huge drills have dug underground bases below the Rocky Mountains, which are connected to Washington by high-speed trains. Giant nuclear-powered drills, similar to those used by the British and French to carve out the English Channel, are now glazing the walls of underground facilities, fortifying them for future use. The reason for such a complex system of bunkers has nothing to do with a nuclear World War III, but rather a natural disaster the likes of which this present world has never witnessed. This event is apocalyptic and involves the arrival of Planet X. The magnetic field created by the passage of this planetary system could cause a massive debris field to rain down on the world. Something epic is about to occur that the elite have been preparing for since the discovery of this system back in the early 1980s by the IRIS telescope. First, its discovery was announced to the world via 2 major newspapers, and then it was suddenly suppressed and no government agency was allowed to discuss it again. So what can most people do to prepare who aren't among the privileged few? Will they wait until the government makes a nationwide announcement and then look up into the sky to see what's coming? Will they wait until a series of nuclear weapons are detonated or a viral pandemic becomes widespread before finally becoming motivated to prepare? But by that time, it will have been too late to make any preparations. There have been unusual reports of strange sounds and vibrations coming from underground in the past 20 years. Almost continuously, reports have come from ordinary people in many townships across the heartland of the United States and in southern Canada. Listen as residents of Windsor, Ontario, talk about these unusual sounds that are ongoing.
That we began hearing and feeling a very loud vibration outside. We really didn't acknowledge it at the time, but a year and a half later, the vibrations and the rumblings have become so intense that it's disrupted our daily lives. The rumblings began almost immediately in the morning and proceed throughout the evening, getting stronger in intensity.
I live in South Windsor. We started hearing some of the rumbling noises in about February. And then in time, I started noticing greater frequency and patterns, particularly in the evenings, where this noise was occurring. And it really culminated in an incident at the end of May 31st. I was watching a basketball game, and it was incredibly loud. The vibrations, you could feel them coming through the house and through the windows. We went out to see what it was, and it was just so intense. And as a result of that, I got involved. I contacted the Ministry of the Environment to find out what the issue was and to find out what they knew about it, and made some further efforts to get the federal government to provide some monitoring equipment.
Back in March, I started to receive 1 or 2 phone calls about some consistent rumblings and vibrations in neighborhoods in and around the ward, specifically around Rankin and Taunton and other areas like that. At the time, I probably would have thought it was just some sort of isolated construction project in the area, but it then escalated quite significant over the next month and a half, 2 months or so. I started hearing it from all over the western part of my ward, Ward 10, and then started to hear a lot more from residents all over the southern part of Windsor and west parts of Windsor and LaSalle. So I then, at this point, decided to get together with some residents, visit their homes, and start pinpointing on a map exactly where these vibration rumblings, noises are coming from. Last night, around between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., I visited those homes, visited some areas, and it was a real strong vibration that had come from the ground. It was a synthetic noise. It's really there.
You personally experienced it?
I personally experienced it. I sat and the person in the house at the time shut off the air conditioner, shut off the furnace, shut off the water main, shut off the electricity, and turned everything off and around the house. And if you put your palm to the hardwood floor, you could feel some sort of synthesizing a little bit of a noise vibration. It's very weak. It grows a little bit, but it's consistent, and it goes back down. It's real, it's there, it's present, and I think that this issue needs to be taken much more serious. There needs to be an investigation. It's out there. It's getting, complaints are rising, and it started with 1 or 2 people, and now it's gotten to hundreds and hundreds of people across the southern west part of the city, and even bordering into the south.
So, as you can see, there are difficult questions that we must ask ourselves. Did you know that there is a joint venture of the National Security Agency, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Center for Disease Control, which has been created to facilitate an expansive tunnel system throughout the South to protect us from nuclear, biological, and chemical attack? These tunnels will also serve as conduits for national defense to move troops, supplies, and armor between strategic locations. Here is something that is worth noting. The tunnels are already in place. They are reportedly using a 6-month time frame to clear out the facilities and reconfigure them for supply depots, communication hubs, and pre-processing centers. Now, you know there are going to be some who are going to think this is all crazy nonsense. These are the same people who spend little or no time researching this. The same is true with respect to Planet X. It's easy to say it doesn't exist if you haven't done any serious research. My suggestion to those who know or feel that something just isn't right is to use the internet while it is still available for your use. There are many books and publications that can teach you how to construct fortified bunkers and at the same time show you how to prepare food and water supplies in a natural manner. Some of you will say, what is the use of preparing? We're all going to die anyway. That is an easy out for those who are not prepared and have no intention of doing so. But for the rest of us, being prepared to face any potential disaster is of the utmost importance, as it could happen at any given time. Every disaster, regardless of the impact, teaches us a lesson, that it is better to have a clear understanding of what to do when disaster strikes than to be wandering in the wilderness with no concept of how to survive. The construction of underground facilities may very well be related to what is happening in the sky. Many of you are convinced that another sun is appearing. There are many photos and videos that are providing ample evidence to support this. Regardless, there are some in the community who do not want to talk about this and are doing everything which is humanly possible to keep you from discovering the truth. One of the ways in which they have tried to hide this is through the continuous use of chemtrails. If you spend any time in the outdoors, especially in areas that are heavily populated, you will see the trails zigzag across the horizon prior to sunset or just before sunrise. The spraying of our atmosphere will continue as long as the vast majority of us have our faces glued to our cell phones or a television screen, or for as long as the mainstream media keeps it under wraps. It doesn't matter what we call this thing, a second sun, a brown dwarf star, NiBIRU, the red or blue Kachina of Hopi prophecy. It just doesn't matter because it is there. They are attempting to keep it hiding from view. I know this because I have seen it firsthand. They spray chemtrails early in the morning and again in the evening. Not every day, but when it is needed. They even make an X to mark the spot. Whatever has entered into our existence, its presence is being felt across the solar system. What it will do and when it will make its presence known is a matter of interpretation. But it must be something extraordinary, otherwise the people in authority wouldn't be going to such extremes to keep its presence hidden for so many years. So, my friends, keep your eyes open and focused on your surroundings. Here is something very interesting that I just recently discovered about NiBIRU, which is known in ancient literature as the planet of the crossing. It is now apparent that NiBIRU is no longer a theory. Scientists and educators across the globe have come to the conclusion that its existence is real, and that it poses concerns for the inhabitants of planet Earth. This may seem whimsical to some of you, especially those who cannot grasp the concept of a Planet X. But for a number of years now, there have been a series of subtle hints given to the public, warning them of what is to come. This has been accomplished through means of Hollywood productions, commercials, and television documentaries. Now it seems even cartoons are providing an outlet for informing people. Most of you may be familiar with the cartoon series called Scooby-Doo. It's been in syndication for a long time. Well, as you will see in this video clip, the producers of this animated show have something to tell the world. Take a look.
Something's been bugging me about our little underwater escapade.
There's a lot about that adventure I wish we could forget.
Amen to that.
But the weirdest part of all was what the late Abigail Gluck whispered.
Like I'll say, a crazy mummified corpse whispering NiBIRU is creepy times 10.
It gets creepier. I googled it and found a lot. Namely this. NiBIRU is a planet listed in the writings of Zecharia Sitchin, particularly his book The 12th Planet. According to Sitchin's interpretation of Babylonian religious texts, a giant planet called NiBIRU passes by Earth every 3,600 years and allows its sentient inhabitants to interact with humanity. These beings, which Sitchin identified with the Anunnaki of Sumerian myth, would become humanity's first gods. My favorite internet encyclopedia says there's supposed to be a collision. The NiBIRU collision is a disastrous encounter between the Earth and a large planetary object. Believers in this doomsday event usually refer to this object as Planet X, or NiBIRU.
The doomsday event?
Regardless of the intent of the producers, there is certainly a story to convey here. Although this is a cartoon watched by millions of children around the world, there appears to be a serious overtone incorporated into the animated episode. Down in Antarctica, there is another story waiting to be told. All of a sudden, government officials, military brass, even predominant members of the world's religions are going there. But why? What is so important that requires their immediate attention and concern? There's even some speculation that people are being evacuated. If this should prove to be true, then something very disconcerting is taking place on the frozen continent. But there is one thing that is a certainty that has significant implications. The crack in the Larsen C ice shelf continues to grow and expand. There are now only 10 miles of ice that separate this from the open sea. This is not the first time that Antarctica has been on the verge of losing a significant portion of its ice sheet, but the Larsen C ice collapse will most likely change the landscape of the continent. It will allow the glacial ice to enter the ocean faster and accelerate the pace of sea level rise. This is because Larsen C is 10 times bigger than its nearby ice shelf, and therefore will have a more devastating impact on Earth's ecological balance. As you know, Skywatch Media has been posting a series of images and video clips captured by skywatchers from all over the world. They are posted on our Facebook page, which was created primarily for this purpose. Keeping you up to date is very important, so what I would like to do in my upcoming presentations is to include a few images and videos that were posted on our Facebook page that you may not have had an opportunity to view yet. So let's take a look at what is happening at this time.